And we follow those things, those little winks that says, oh, I enjoy this and I'm getting good feedback. Sometimes they can go unnoticed, but when we follow them, it's usually the right path, I've found.
You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world. Our guest today is Shoemaker. She has been a career strategist and executive coach for over 20 years. She guides executive and aspiring executive women to leadership roles across various industries. She's a founder of a women's business enterprise and holds a business degree from Wake Forest University, along with a graduate degree in e-commerce from Luleå University of Technology in Sweden. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you did great.
Okay. She is also raising her son to be a feminist and her daughter to be an activist because she believes we need both, and so do I. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Oh, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
My pleasure. So we always start with, what does woman of value mean to you, Anne?
Well, I was thinking about this before our call, and I'm thinking, the first thing that comes up is a woman of value is a woman who knows her value. So to me, what that means is a woman who has agency, and lives and embodies that agency through the decisions that she makes, through the choices that she makes, if she's able to, the choices that she makes with her time, with her finances and her resources. A woman of value to me is a woman who knows that she matters and that her voice matters.
Love it. All of it. I mean, I think agency, so many people don't believe they have it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. I mean, I know you have your own story of finding your voice and, being able to make choices that really feel more authentic to you. So let's get into that.
Sure.
That time when you started to find your own value, because I think a lot of people believe that we're just born this way and we just kind of become who we become. Like, we dream of being an executive coach when we're 5. That's not usually what happens. So tell us your story.
Sure. So I would say that, the early part of my career, I was really fortunate to have some great sponsors and mentors who saw my value and tried to cultivate my gifts and, open doors for me of opportunity. And so as a naive person in my 20s, I thought, okay, this is the way this is going to be, hard work in equals rewards and benefits out. And as most of us know who've been around for a little while, it's not always that way. So when I moved on from that role where I had been so kind of in a nest, I moved into a different role where I thought that that would continue, that would be the status quo as long as I worked hard, kept my nose down, and that there would be, value that would come to me and from my efforts. And I didn't find that in the next role. And I think my kind of confidence took a hit, and I started to wonder, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not getting the same results that I got in the other environment? It must be something with me, that I'm not meeting expectations here. And so I, hit a funk for a while, for a couple of years, where I was doubting myself and still trying to perform, but not getting that great feedback. And so just like a lot of people do, I doubled down, worked harder, and still wasn't, getting the results that I wanted. So in the end, I resulted to going back to something that I knew how to do really well, which is just take care of myself. I hadn't been in the gym for a couple of years. And so I was like, I know that going back to work out at least is something I can do. Let me at least pick up that kind of personal self-care while my professional life was not as fulfilling. And through that process, I really got back in touch with myself. And whether it was the endorphins or whatever, I had such a sense of fit that this is what I can do this really well. And then when I would sit down at my desk, it was the opposite of I'm not doing this very well. And so finally I had a contrast. It wasn't like everything in my world was going poorly. It was more like this is going well, this is not going well. And I had an aha moment when I realized that just because they may not value the work that I do or how I was doing it, didn't mean that there wasn't value there. And so at that time, once I had that contrast of I can do things really well, it's just not being seen or being recognized here, that I decided to, start on my own path and, start my own business, doing things where I knew that I could pour into others and get some positives back out of it for myself. I hope that answered your question. I think I might have gone off a little bit sideways.
No. I think that it definitely did answer my question. I think a lot of people get lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
And when you don't step away, you can't see what is going on, right? So when we're in the weeds, literally, it feels like we're in the weeds. That's all we see. And we can really question our self-worth if other people are not validating who we are, what we're worth.
Right.
And so I think that contrast of the self-care, the gym, really helped you to understand your value and realize you needed to start your own thing.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I love that journey. And I'm wondering if you can also share a little bit of your athletic journey that led you to the career that you had, that you left, that you,
Yes.
so like the before journey, because I found that really interesting. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So, kind of going all the way back, as a little girl, I went with my mom was helping coach my brother's soccer team, my older brother, and I was, needed to be with her. So I ended up kicking the ball around at his practices, on this boys team when I was quite young, and I really liked it. And there wasn't a place for me though, because it was a boys team. And I think maybe one day, they were short a player. So they said, okay, put Anne over there on the left side. And that's, a lot of people don't have a left foot, being more right dominant. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just try this. And over time, they saw that I was developing a left foot. All those years where I was playing on these boys teams, because there weren't any girls teams, I was always kind of stuck over there on the left side of the field where no one else wanted to be. And that really developed in me a very strong left foot. So at the end of the day, I ended up earning a scholarship to play soccer at Wake Forest. And I was playing on the left side again, because there's almost always a need for someone with what for many is a weakness. So I had a great career playing soccer at Wake and graduated and moved to Washington, D.C. and was working in consulting. At the time, my husband, then boyfriend, was moving to Sweden to play basketball in one of their professional leagues. And I decided to go with him. And it just so happened that the town where he was living had a pretty successful women's professional team. So I joined that team again on the left side of the field. And it was called professional. It was, the lowest level of what we would think of being professional today. But it was a wonderful experience. So I got to travel around and play with a team, earned my master's degree. And when I came back, actually, it was athletic connections along the way that kind of resulted in how I got recruited. It was always a connection between at the time, a male boss who played basketball, University of Southern Cal, or somebody who played football or whatever, who ended up hiring me because they knew that I had that athletic drive and discipline and time management that translates so well from the athletic field to the career space and the professional world. So I made the leap. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, it's such an interesting story because I can see the connection from your past where you were told there's no girls team and you said, well, I'm not going to take that as the final end of the story here. Like you did something that people didn't expect and you got really good at it. And then you ended up meeting your husband. Yes. Who you followed that path and the career took off in soccer. But it's really about perseverance, it's about ambition, it's about following breadcrumbs, it's about allowing the opportunities to develop because you took action. And I think that shows today in the work that you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I love that the phrase you used of following breadcrumbs, because it really was that, when we follow those things, those little winks that says, oh, I enjoy this and I'm getting good feedback. Sometimes they can go unnoticed, but when we follow them, it's usually the right path, I've found.
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
what's right in front of us seems like it should be the right path because society says it, and that's really obvious, but it's those little things on the side that sometimes is actually where we need to be.
And I think also so many people who are listening who might be younger, who think I have to know the end. I have to know my career because I picked my major and this is it. And if you're only looking with blinders on, you will not be able to see the opportunities as they come up. And you will also sometimes stay stuck, like you could have been in your job if you hadn't had that gym experience where you realized, hey, wait a minute, I like this part of my life. I don't like this part. And so it takes courage, but it also, I think there are certain personalities, and I'm like this also, where I can't stay stuck. And so if you're a person who really hates that feeling of stuckness, you will follow the breadcrumbs. So I'm just encouraging anybody who feels really stuck to take a page out of Anne's book and, really just have the courage to start making use of the breadcrumbs that show up in front of you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, agreed. I actually had one client that reminded me of something. I had a client who was feeling stuck in her role and kind of beaten down in very different circumstances, but a similar feeling that I had. And one of the questions that I asked her was, when was the last time that you felt really strong and really confident? And she just, her mind kind of exploded. She's like, she felt like never, it felt like, it just felt as if that was such a far reaching vision for her to have of like, when have I ever felt strong? And after a minute or so, she was like, oh, well, when I ride, she's a horse rider, an equestrian. She's like, definitely when I'm on a horse, So just reminding ourselves of what it feels like and that we do have that capacity within ourselves. Sometimes we just need to get back in touch with the fact that that can be real again. We've just kind of lost our way.
Yeah, that's a good story. I'm helping a woman right now who came to me for dating coaching. And on the way, she discovered she's not really into dating right now, but she does want to change her career. And so she was feeling really stuck. And so we started to do that work of finding the places where she felt most alive, most like herself. And it's interesting when you look back and you sometimes feel like I've been so many different people, like, am I like, do I have multiple personalities? But the truth is that if we are adventurous and explore, we may embody different parts of ourselves. And I think as we grow, if we can combine those parts and really find a way to make money doing it, that's the ideal. And for her, it's really interesting. She loves burlesque. She used to live in New Orleans and loved getting dressed up. And she works in corporate in a bank. She is absolutely not accessing that part of herself. And she does really well. She knows how to raise money. She knows how to do really well, but she was kind of dying inside. And so we're exploring different options of combining her love of feminine and fashion and burlesque and feminine expression and having a voice and possibly doing something that involves pole dancing and dressing up and maybe even helping abused women. I mean, we're kind of in the beginning stages of this, but it's exciting. And because she has spent a lot of time in corporate, she has enough money now that she can have the luxury of exploring a new career, which is so exciting.
Right. That's so inspiring. I love that. It's a wonderful story.
Thank you. I mean, I love helping people align with their values and be all they can be. And it sounds like we have similar missions here.
Absolutely. That fully integrated woman is so powerful, and that's what I hope and that I can help women move if not leaving fully aligned and integrated, then moving in that direction, because I think we glow from the inside when we have that. Everything clicks and it's noticeable to everybody else.
Yes, and that to me is the epitome of the woman of value too. It's that glowing from the inside. People want to be around that person because she's true to herself and not people pleasing and not, doing this whole disguise thing. So take us to you began the story of going down your own path. Tell us what that is and where you are today with it.
Sure. So I started coaching women. So I coach executive and aspiring executive women. Our topics run anywhere from kind of the intersection of home and work through just, more career focused topics. So I meet with women one-on-one. I work with women in small groups, in person and virtually. I also lead workshops for like women's ERGs at employee resource groups and corporate, in the corporate world. Basically, I'm trying to help, just kind of what you just said, trying to affirm women's stories and witness women's experiences through what they're willing to share in these venues, and give them the encouragement, feedback, support, and guidance if that's what they need to help them, get where they're trying to go. So it's really, for me, if I had to sum up what it is that I'm doing, it's holding space for women to share their stories, be seen, be heard, and then help them put together an action plan to get where it is they want to go. And it's the best work in the world.
I can see how you light up when you talk about it. If you have ever played small to make other people feel comfortable, or maybe stayed in a bad relationship or job too long because you didn't think you could do any better, I wrote a book for you. It's called Becoming a Woman of Value: How to Thrive in Life and Love. Each of the 30 chapters contains a life lesson, a story, and an exercise to bring you closer to reaching your full potential. Becoming a Woman of Value is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. It is so exciting to help people be all they can be and to encourage them to get where they're trying to go, as you say. Because so many people don't do it. So many people have regrets and say they wish they could, or they're not like you, so they can't. And yeah, that's not really true. I think for most people, getting the right guidance is key. I think a lot of people listen to podcasts and they read the books, and then they don't really get the guidance to get them to that next level.
Right. And I think I'm one of those people who listens to podcasts and reads the books, and yet it's when I'm going on a walk with a friend or out to dinner at a lunch or whatever and sharing my story, or hearing another woman share her story, where all the pieces click together. Like, we might know what we need to do, or we might have read the book and taken the notes or whatever, but we sometimes really need a witness or a coach or somebody in our corner, someone holding our hand right there with us to go to get us over the hump from inertia to action. And so, it's wonderful to be a part of that journey.
And sharing our stories is such a powerful thing. I don't think most people realize the power of storytelling.
Right.
And it's something that I'm very passionate about too. I've gotten very involved in storytelling and going to the Moth and speaking on the Moth stage and listening to stories of people, because they are so inspirational, and you never know whose life you're going to touch, who needs to hear your story, and what it will ignite in them.
Absolutely. And I think there's almost, just to play with the word story, there's the stories that are real that we've lived, and then there's the stories in our head too, and so that's a fun, not fun, I mean, it's a challenge, but someone might say, I could never leave this career, I'm 20 years in, and it's kind of like, well, that's a story, that's a belief. And so I think, again, like podcasts, books, they all serve a role, but when somebody can reflect in a compassionate way to challenge someone to say, I hear you saying that, and I know that's very real in your mind, but I wonder if that's a fact.
Mhm.
or if that can be disproven, and maybe could there be a way that this could be done to help kind of open up those possibilities for the client. Is just that's, I think, one of the big powers of coaching, is listening to the actual story and then also kind of parsing out what's the belief that's maybe not really a part of the story.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. I think we all carry limiting beliefs. And if somebody, we believe they're real. I mean, if somebody we're working with helps us see, oh, it's a story. I have made this into reality and I've made this into my truth. And what if I could reframe that story? And I remember talking to my daughter recently. She's 29, my youngest daughter, and she always says things like, I'm an empath, and that's why I just want to help people. And I'm like, that's great, except you help people who really never help you. That's not great.
Right.
So telling yourself you do it because you're an empath means you don't have a choice, and you do have a choice. And so we can reframe. You can be empathic, you can be kind, but you're not a doormat. And so we have to look at those stories we're telling ourselves and see, how do they play out in our lives, and is that working?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the future for Anne Shoemaker. What does that look like?
Yes. Well, right now I'm doing a lot of networking to try to um, explore different ways in which I can reach these women who I'm trying to pour into. So the future might look more like more public speaking and more workshops. It might look like more group coaching. So there's kind of an expansion, I guess is maybe a word. I've done a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I'm kind of just starting in the group space, and I've done plenty of workshops, but I'm trying to get some momentum behind that. So I'm really looking to kind of expand the impact that I can make. And really the impact that I want to make is to help women make the impact that they want to make. So trying to expand the way that I think about that and the story that I tell myself, and keeping myself honest about where can I make the most impact. And I think it's probably with bigger groups.
Yeah, definitely. You're sharing the same material and the same guidance. And if you can share it to a bigger audience, then you can help more people.
Right. Absolutely. So trying to keep it simple, but through, I guess I would say that I'm a very introverted person in terms of, and you probably, I'm sure, are very familiar with what that means. Not that I'm shy, but I just need to be by myself to get my energy back. And one thing that I noticed during COVID and as an outcome of COVID really was when we all went into lockdown, I kind of felt like, I mean, there was the horrific, illness that was going on. And on an individual level, the ability to kind of close my door and close into myself was very welcome. And I realized last year that I had become really comfortable inside of my house, and had, kind of let some groups and networks kind of hit the back burner. So what I'm really challenging myself to do this year is to get out a lot more, and it's going really well. But so when I say networking, I want to make an impact, and I also want to be honest with myself that if I'm encouraging women to get outside of their comfort zone, I need to do the same. And the good thing that's come of it is I thought it would be a drain on my energy as an introvert, and I've found that it's actually having the opposite effect. So it's a good lesson learned that sometimes the story we tell ourselves is, it's going to be this way because it's been that way in the past. And yet, since we're always evolving it, I'm learning a new story that I'm actually really energized by the meetings that I'm having. So yeah, so lots more speaking with more women, doing some more networking, and expanding my impact.
It's interesting that you brought up COVID, because as a fellow introvert, I totally was like, yeah, this is fine. I like this.
Right.
And I had been working on Zoom anyway for years before COVID. And so I just continued my work. It didn't really impact me, and I liked not having tons of people around.
Right.
But I did feel the same as you, that it took a lot to get back on a stage, like to get out in front of people instead of speaking behind a screen. because it's a social skill, and it's sort of, you get rusty. And all the extroverts are out there going, yay, the COVID restrictions are lifted, let's go socialize. And the introverts are like putting little baby steps out there going, I think it's safe. So I get it. And I think as an introvert, it doesn't mean that you don't speak in public. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy conversations with lots of people. It really is about preserving your energy and how you recharge. And I think that just getting out there, knowing you're making an impact, it's energizing.
Right.
And to me, there's nothing better. Like, I wake up in the morning and knowing that I am going to make a difference in somebody's life is the best thing in the world. It's like liquid energy. And so it's good. And it's always good to also get out of your comfort zone and do the things that scare us.
Right. Another phrase that I'm thinking of so much recently is chosen challenges. Like, there were challenges that I had earlier, like in that bad job situation where I'm like, this is a challenge and I don't like this challenge. There's nothing that's really pouring into me in this challenge. And I'm so thrilled to be able to say that most of the challenges that I have right now in this moment, which I will hold lightly because it will change, are chosen challenges. And I'm grateful for those.
Mm. Well, we're going to go into the lightning round. Are you
Okay.
ready?
We'll see how I do.
Yeah, well, they're quick and easy and fun.
Okay.
So this first one is fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Witty enough.
Hmm.
Mm.
How did that show up in your life?
Well, I've like a good introvert that I am, I'm surrounded by a lot of great extroverts, and I really admire their wit and their ability to banter really quickly in conversation and have a quick comeback or whatever. And I brush my teeth the next morning and say, I should have said no, 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 no. And so I used to think I wasn't witty enough. And now I still wish I could. I admire that quality in others, but I don't beat myself up over it.
You process things.
Yes, I do.
That's your superpower, right? What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Myself. Those limiting beliefs. And I think the training or that I've gotten from society, if I can put it off on society, that, we always need to look at ourselves, and maybe that's a good thing, is to evaluate ourselves and evaluate our own roles and things. But for so many years there, when I was feeling stuck, I just kept thinking, I need to change this. I need to do something different so that they can see what I'm bringing to this. And really, in that case, they were never going to change. I needed to make a change for myself. That's not always the case, but I wish if I could only have gotten there a little faster, but all in good time.
Yeah, well, I think there's a big difference between self-blame and self-work, right?
Yes,
So we're always working to improve ourselves, and it's not necessarily to please others, but to really become the best version of ourselves.
right.
And I think when we focus so much on pleasing others by changing who we are, that's when we get into trouble. And I
Yes,
see that in the dating world, I see it in the work world with friendships. Be on that journey, do the work, but do it because you want to do it. Do it because it's going to make you a better person, and it will improve relationships. But you
right,
can't change people, like you said.
right, right. Very good.
All right. Next question. What is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
Oh, I would say the best advice I could give a woman who wants to be more empowered is to be still and listen to herself. I just, it's as evidenced by at least my own journey with meditation. I can go 10, 12 days in a row and then I fall off. I don't do it. And really, with meditation or mindfulness, it's really just about being still. And it's very hard for me to hear that inner voice when I'm running through a to-do list or looking at a screen or even just, driving or whatever. Sometimes it'll break through, right? And we'll get that, you need to do whatever. But most of the time, in order for me to really get in touch with the inner voice inside of me and myself, I need to be still and listen.
That's really good advice. Very few of us do that today. I think there's so much noise, there's so much coming at us. And, I was teaching a class last night on online dating, and people were like, I'm so overwhelmed with the online dating sites. There's just so much coming at me. And I said, you can control that. Like, you don't have to respond to everything that comes at you. Just like with social media, you can unfollow people, you can delete things. You don't have to let the world control you. You actually have a lot of input into what you take in. But that stillness is what happened when you started going to the gym. Like without that, you wouldn't have taken the time to really hear that voice that said, this isn't the right path.
Absolutely. Everything that you just said completely resonates. And I think for me, the gym was that embodiment. It was kind of like getting out of my head and thinking that I could think and work my way out of this, and falling into my body and just being like, wow, I'm strong. I can do other things, which then allowed my mind to have some space to say, ding, 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 you can also do a lot of other things beyond what you're, beating my head against the wall trying to do.
Yeah, no more beating head against the wall. And next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think the advice I give my younger self is to believe. I can be cynical. And if there's, those little winks, God winks, universe winks, whatever, along the way that kind of say, you're doing okay, keep going. And I think those are moments where our belief can be bolstered. And there's plenty of opportunities to doubt ourselves, and plenty of feedback that we get that comes at us that might be negative. So we have to look really closely to find the little winks of belief that things are going okay, they're going to be okay. And I think what we focus on expands. So if we see those things and give those things a little more space in our vision, then we'll be better for it. So I would say just to believe.
Believe and follow the winks.
Yes.
What is something that people often get wrong about you?
When I was younger, I feel like I used to always hear that I'm intimidating. And sometimes I don't really hear that anymore. I don't have those forums for feedback the way that I used to when I was much younger. But I feel like now I hear a little bit more that I'm approachable. I think because I can be quiet and an introvert, that might make me seem inaccessible sometimes. But usually I'm just sitting back and observing and, really just don't have anything to say sometimes. So I think sometimes that has come off as intimidating.
Yeah, I think a lot of introverts, again,
Yeah.
are quieter, so they're not talking as much, and they can come across as snobby or intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take the time to really get to know these people, such as you, we realize that you're approachable. But it's just those moments of stillness.
Right.
People are used to filling all the space and all the noise, and
Yes.
not allowing any silence. And so take the time to get to know people who are quieter.
Yeah.
And finally, Anne, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as someone who is respectful and or compassionate. I'd like to be remembered as someone who is open-minded enough to hear and understand someone else's journey. So somewhere in there that feels like giving someone else the respect of not having walked in their shoes and not known what their path has been. And that also to me speaks of compassion, of just, listening to somebody else and trying to understand someone else's story. So something around respect and compassion, I think would be great.
That's beautiful. I just was listening to a podcast this morning, The Hidden Brain, and it's one of my favorite podcasts. And they were talking about perspective of the other person
Yeah.
and how few of us are able to see things from another perspective. And it was all about values and how we think our values are the right values and someone else's are the wrong values. And when we can open to other people and how they see the world, our lives grow and change for the better, I believe. And there's so much less conflict, so much less, I'm right, you're wrong kind of thinking, which leads to the open-mindedness and the compassion you're talking about. So I think this is it's a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful way to be remembered.
Mhm. Thank you. That's a great question.
Oh, thank you. So Anne, tell us where we can find you. Your website would be helpful, your Instagram.
Sure. So my website is just my name, AnneShoemaker.com, and that's Anne and E, SHOEMAKER.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me under my name, and I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm also on Instagram at Career Advisor Anne.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, for showing us what a woman of value looks like. Somebody who followed the breadcrumbs and the little winks, somebody who didn't stay stuck, but kept moving forward to find your passion, your mission, and you're doing amazing things in the world, helping women be all they can be, to show up, to speak up, to stand up for what's important to them. And it's just a beautiful thing. And I wish you all the best as you continue on this journey.
So, thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thanks everybody for listening. If you love our show, please give us a high rating on Apple Podcasts and share the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, be a woman of value. If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.